Mark Morrow with the Broadside Wargaming ITC Seasonal Major, where he took the Tactical Brigade, my kids. So someone's out here getting tactical and cunning, huh? But be on the lookout for that. Orcs with brains and commandos and wearing camouflage. Let me pull it up over here. So let's look at his list. I will say now, some of you guys are gonna be like, I'm familiar with this, and that's okay because we're seeing that even without the secondary orders, this is fantastic. So this event was in Ireland. So can Tactical Brigade? The real question in here is, can Tactical Brigade hold up to Warhorde? Can Tactical Brigade kind of keep its place at least as number two? Or is it really just going to be a fluke? So this was in Ireland. So from what I've seen, they were playing on the WTC terrain. Okay, cool. I wish I could have seen the mission pack, but I can't. All right, cool. It's okay. I got too excited. So we have two beast bosses, triple Big Mac with shock attack on Zagwa or Wartsnaga. Still kept the Zag up in there. Crazy. And then we have a Big Mac in mega armor with, of course, Mac Captain as the Warlord. All right, so some cool things here. The Beast. Absolutely love that you're combined arming it. And like I constantly bring up to people, the Beast Boss is not the same if you don't have sustain. That simple. That simple. When you talk to me about him and Bully Boys, the only semi-appealing thing there is that he can re-roll the wound possibly with Ed Stompa. That's appealing if you can get it off circumstantially. But getting sustain is what really brings the most value out of the Beast Boss, as you can re-roll and fish for the sixes and really peak his potential. Now you do have the access also more dock where you can reroll wounds, so it's kind of also appealing as well. But all in all, sustained and this allows you to bring nice combined armed assets that don't rely on the wall, that still allow you to play primary games and flip primaries if you don't necessarily kill your full target. They have a diverse profile of killing a bunch of screens or to being anti-armor. Now they aren't ideal into elite infantry, but other units on your list hopefully are. So then we have Zagrat, which I wanted to point out. Yes, Zagrat's still on the menu, and I've been saying he still has a place even in Tactical Brigade. Why is that? Because you can give him another OC and because you can allow him to fall back, shoot, and charge. So if Zod goes off and the enemy decides I'm just going to ignore that stupid unit and I can simply just put enough OC on there, kill just enough of them that I don't care, well, then fine. I'll ignore them. You can't do that if they can pump every single grout up to another OC and they can fall back and charge and re-engage and do the same thing they just freaking did. That cannot be allowed. Absolutely cannot be allowed, which means you directly impact the choices your enemy is going to make when you declare the wall if they haven't mitigated your Zod, which it looks like for Mark, they never did. So that's really where it comes into play. So I don't have the missions for him, but one I can just simply bring up in mind is if you're playing the ritual, for example, the enemies typically want to stand back and hold their position, and you as a tactical brigade you're going to slowly, methodically make your place up the field, redeploy if you can. He doesn't have the redeploy enhancement, but other people might. You're going to play with the reserves, and you're going to move your way up the field kind of strategically. In this case, now, if you have Zod, that means, well, you know where the enemy is going to put some of their resources, and you're going to go over there and steal their objective. Even if they dwindle you down to 5 Grots and Zod, I'm going to just give myself more OC, just going to fall back and charge and steal something else. It's obnoxious, it's outrageous, and I love it. And Zod's just where it's at when you really figure out how to touch multiple objectives with them. So we have four trucks, and then of course the Big Mech Captain. Let's go. There's nothing like it. Nothing like it, at least for us. Like we can see, re-rolling hits for something on Overwatch is freaking fantastic. Getting additional shot because it's the closest target, boom, is fantastic. The fact that he loves every single pretty much stratagem that we have is in this detachment is awesome too. It gives us that kind of combined arms additionally that we don't have. So if half your list is tank busters, kind of shooting units like we're going to see here, and then the other half is punching units, well, Flash fall right there in the middle where they're going to shoot and punch. Love it. Then we have the big two Grot units, obviously. One's a big one, one's a small one, minimum size. And then 2 5-man units of Ludas plus 1 10-man unit of Ludas. So yes, that was pretty. Now, at first I was like, what the heck? Because he has 3 tank busters. And you're obviously going to put the Big Mac with shock attack guns on the tank busters. But yes, if you're used to playing Dread Mob or Mordaka, whatever you were playing, you also know that you can kind of stage up with your tank busters. And not necessarily always have them be inside the transports because you can just pop through the terrain to get line of fire on what your optimal targets are. That means you can have a unit of at least one tank buster unit kind of be on the field where the looters primarily are staged up, and you can drip feed at least that one one 10-man unit of Ludas, right? So that one 10-man and Ludas, when they walk out to the middle objective and people start doing their trades, turn one, turn two, well, 10-man unit of Ludas +1 to hit if they're going to shoot on that objective, that's cool. But then you get to re-roll hit. But if they're not, then you can just +1 to hit them, and then they're just shooting people up. Fantastic. I absolutely love that. And if you want them to fight, if you could have given them a different order, +1 strength, if they're standing objectives, you could choose to do both because let's say you want to put bodies on the objective. Cool. Area now. Here we go. Ludas. Get up, charge, get up there. So there are options you can do with that. And then the 2 5-man units, I can see them as coming off the table edges and just kind of getting off more shots just because your list is already kind of shooting and having just bodies. It usually comes down to points. So I think the 2 5-man units of Luda is pretty awesome, pretty tight pick. Normally don't go for 2. 1, I understand, but 2, that was a nice, unique pick, and I would like to hear more about that. It could be just that it was on the missions. The layout. If he's playing WTC missions layout, then that means there's kind of like different lines of fire and more condensed boards. So these 5-man units might easily be able to actually jump out and just look at the objective and get shot at them, or getting from the battlefield from table edges. Right. We didn't go over the Squig City list. That's next. Yeah, Squig City list was pretty dope too. Okay, I see you, Brett. I'm gonna mention you in a second. So as for this, absolutely loved Mark's list. The 4 trucks. He's not playing on GW layout. That's why he's not bringing like a battle wagon, for example, obviously. So our SWAT teams, our ability to fit something just as fat as a 10-man unit flash gives to the Big Mac is a huge benefit to you as an orc player. But I cannot stress, don't forget about strategic reserves and rapid ingress, right? Not everything on this list can obviously go in a truck, as he only has 4 trucks. Therefore, clearly he at least had one of these units of beast bosses and reserves, and probably a tank buster unit, if not multiple Luda units instead. So I actually love it. Absolutely love it. So let's go over his actual path to victory. I don't have notes from this get. Shout out to our sponsors, the Baron of Dice, as they helped us do our wall tactic dice. So shout them out. Check them out in description, 5% off in the discount because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Baron of Dice. They allow us to do our paint competition. So thank you very much to them. Now let's talk about his path to victory because Mark Morrow, right, ended up going off here. So his first game on his path to victory was the Blood Angel, and this was is this gonna be no Blood Angels because they have the Gladius Task Force? Is that combined arm shooting? So we have Captain and Gravis armor with Artificer armor, Judiciar, 2 Ballistus Dreadnought, a big brick of Blade Guard veterans, 2 Lancers, a Reaper, double Reapers, here we go, Inceptors, Infiltrators, Scout Marines, and then double Vindicators. Huge factor here for you to understand as an Orc player when you're going into any Space Marine player that does not understand that Gladiator Reapers are awesome, is that your benefit is that your unit that's within that transport cannot be declared for an oath target. That means these Reapers are not going to devastate you in Overwatch with these with be able to target those units that are within transports with Overwatch as effectively, but they really can still hurt them. It's a big deal. Now, as soon as you see these guys on the field, understand their lines of target where they're going to actually be able to overwatch you as an orc player. Some of your units, for example, like the Ludas or the Tank Busters, can't really afford to take overwatches. Something that can take at least a little bit, if it's not oath, would be maybe a unit of Speed Snagger Boys. If you're going to deliver the Snaggers to the Reaper itself, there's a chance that he might kill 4, 5 even of them if they're not oath. And you have to sometimes endure that, knowing that the Snagger boss can kind of finish them off. But in more cases than not, if you are oath and let's say you got disembarked and he's or whatever it may be, and he's oath one of those units, now it comes to you being a cunning git as to I'm going to move everything else before that one unit I know you want to overwatch, and then I'm not going to move that, right? There's sometimes that can be a play itself. So you have to keep that in mind when you're going into this. Other than that, this matchup does get a little bit kind of straightforward, as the fact that he has the tank busters being able and the beast snaggers is a lot of good reliable anti-tank potential, and where you end up taking up the Big Mac and Mega Armor, if he ends up committing to that unit and just whiffs because the invuln, there's a good chance. And in my case, I personally think that if you're using the Big Mac and Mega Armor now, there's a good argument for just not taking the +1 to hit order and just giving yourself stealth so that unit can kind of tank and endure more of clapback and then regen and continue doing what it wants to do in its positioning on the battlefield, because it's so impactful when you can deliver that where it wants to be, which is typically wherever the biggest, broadest position is to shoot multiple objectives with Overwatch. So then we move on to his second game. Absolutely love that, taking out the no blood angels in his first game. Then we go into the second game where he goes into Tyranids, Assimilation Swarm. Ooh, this is a good one. You got to be aggressive here, but you typically don't want to. So we got a Brood Lord, Hive Tyrant, Neuro Tyrant. Biovores, Big Brick of Gene Stealers. Pyrovores, Big Brick of Zone Throat. Ripper Swarms, Exocrine, Double Norn Assimilator, 2 Psychophages, and Tyrannocyte. High scoring game where he ended. Oh, yeah, I was about to say 96-point win on this. So you know what I'm gonna say, as I'm very sure of, what's quite impactful on this game was Zod. Zod had to be quite impactful on this game, either because he was able to kind of endure and screen this Brood Lord that he has and the big units of James Taylors with them, or maybe he was using the Ludas for that, or because now when the Norn either tries to get into the position, or never, or if it did, Zod could play a big impact here on this battle, right? Because if you end up going first and you decide I'm going to, let's say, search and destroy, then I can just go touch the Norn assimilators and not allow them to actually get on the objective and get their feel no pains off, well, then I might have just won the game right there. And even if they did get into a position, because I can give myself +1 OC and these guys are so small, and Norns aren't really good at killing large volumes of bodies, well, in that case, there's a good chance that even if he has 2 of them on there, I might be able to actually still flip that objective with simply enough Grots and Zod staying alive and then me giving that unit +1 OC. Now, you do have to worry about passing shadows, of course. There's so much different things that can happen here, but just looking at the score, I have a good opinion that happened. Plus, the Tyranid player still has to respect the fact that you have 3 tank bosses and 2 beast bosses on this list. So when it is that go turn, if he does overly commit because he thinks he's going to try to tank you or try to just flip that objective back, well, then you get to take your pound of flesh cleanly, and that's what it looks like it did for that 96-point win. Freaking love it. I don't know what the mission is, but I can definitely see that game playing out like that, right? Because I own Tyranids too. That's one of my other armies that I still have. So we move on to his third game, where it is Astra Militarum, which is one of my other armies that I like. So we have Canadian command squads, Gaunt's Ghost, Tempest's command squad, 2 Rogodorn commanders, and then Ursula Creed. We have Acadian shock troop, 2 units of Ketochan jungle fighters. I was checking if they're 20-man units, but they are not. But they do have 2 bricks of the Death Core of Krieg. Now, I do actually, think this is the preferred brick because they get the feel no pain, they get to regen some dudes, they get a 6 of feel no pain. I like that. I think it's not reliable, but appreciative. Didn't he bring? Okay, just checking. Then we got 1 unit of Adeline Rough Riders, a Hellhound, 2 Lehman Russ battle tanks, and then 1 brick of Tempestus Scions. As for how does this one go out? I mean, I personally think that this is where you understand that giving your whole army stealth helps offset this. This is where we talked about having a unit of beast bosses and knowing that, hey, I actually have something that could really clap on that big 20-man unit of Death Core of Krieg. Now, you might be thinking, well, I don't want to hit a 10-man unit of Death Core with my beast boss. That's lame. Yes, I understand that. I totally do. And that's where understanding that you can pile in and still fight a tank that's near it with the beast boss come into play. So let's say a Lehman Russ is being screened by the unit of Death Core Krieg to a degree, but you get a nice big 9-inch charge off on it. Well, you can position yourself into a way that you can still pile into the Lehman Russ with your beast boss and have the 10-man unit still clap the Death Core of Krieg squad while your Flashgate unit claps another unit of Death Core Krieg, right? Or you can just dwindle down that screen and then pick the rest of it up with the snaggers themselves. So the fact that, yes, in this kind of list, you don't have ideal targets every single time because, a Lehman Russ might not be at your exposure when this guy can put 20-man units out on the field, but you understand that you have tank busters and you still have multiple units of Ludas that can kind of go and pick up his other skirmishing type units like his Adelins, or even if I have to, I can shoot at his jungle fighters, his command squads, whatever it may be. It Gaunt's Ghosts if they end up getting too aggressive. So I love it. I love that he actually still has some of the value assets. And like I said, when you're looking at using Tactical Brigade here, it's more about understanding that you have assets that can take advantage of multiple phases of the game and that you have assets for when your just general core stratagems are going to be important, and when sometimes you're just going to pick stealth the vast majority of the time, you're not going to complicate things, and understand that the 5-up invuln, the stealth, and just your wall capabilities themselves are what are going to carry you in some matchups. And I feel like in that one, there's a good chance that just pretty much putting stealth on a lot of things are going to make a big difference. Then we move into his fourth game where we have the Black Templar. So we have Castellan, High Marshal Helbrick, Lieutenant. One big brick of Crusaders, two big bricks of Crusaders, followed by an Intercessor squad, one Ballistas Dreadnought, one Lancer, a Repulsor Executioner, a Land Raider, a brick of Sword Brethren, followed by a small unit of Sword Brethren, and a Scout squad. So a bunch of killer missiles out here. Missile type units out here where everything wants to kill you and get a chunk of flesh. Love that there's bricks of Primaris command squads. This actually looks like a very exciting, fun game. For this game, I'd really love to know what the mission was. But what I do also know is that those Primaris command squads do think and want to think they can stand on an objective in front of you, which is where you find great value. And I happen to have 20 Ludas on this list. That way I know, right? We know because this guy is low on assets as the Black Templar player. We know that he's low on what he can actually put out onto the objective. And we know that his gun lines are going to be gunning. They're going to be sitting back. His transport's going to be holding them sword brethren. And then he's going to be chucking those big bricks out into the middle of the field, hoping he can get enough commitment out of you. And then he's going to just his essentially Black Templar wand to you and just put everything in your face and shoot you to bits and charge you down. In this case, this is where you can say, I can actually skirmish it and duke it out with some of those guys, which is where I have a bunch of Ludas. I have a bunch of Ludas. I have flash kits. I don't have to necessarily close that threat range necessarily that fast. And if you disrespect me and put the gun lines in place to pick those guys up, well, then I get tank busters out. I get to pick up your tanks, and then now we're just duking it out. Not to mention that you have Zodgrod. So Zodgrod can actually end as a big kind of umbrella where he can actually kind of keep everything else off you as you do respawn and shoot his tanks down. Well, if you think, well, then he's going to disembark and charge me, or he's going to run through the terrains at me, Zod comes into play and he kind of withholds some of those damage, and then you get to continually keep shooting at these guys, and then possibly combined arm charge and shooting into them at the end that they dwindle. And that would be a really cool game to witness. Like I like it a lot, but I didn't mean to simplify like that, but you can see how 93-point win there on that one, right? That was his fourth. Yeah, that was his fourth one. 93-point win there. So he's scoring big on all these games. But as an orc player, you understand that when people typically want to get a commitment out of you, and when you can actually end up trading up with that, that's really, really good for you as an orc player. So being able to stay out of his charge combined arm threat range with the tank buses, or invading it because you're going, well, you can just expose some of your tanks to me, to my flash kit unit now a little bit. Can't charge them and fully pick them up, but I'm going to regen a couple dudes back, and then I'm going to still be there to kill you, and all my tank buses are going to respond too. So I love it. Not to mention, of course, you have beast bosses coming in from reserve, so Zod makes room for that as well. So Zod's just awesome, and I love that he used it because Zod's keeping that space for this gun line. Then he goes into his last but not least matchup, the Bellicor. So he went to Bellicor for this Shadow Legion. So we have Bellicor, Bloodthirster, Exalted Flamer, Red Master on Bloodthrone, 6 Nurglings, 10 Plague Bearers, Flamers, Seekers, Screamers, a big brick of ACDC Accursed Cultists with the Jump Pack Chaos Terminator and a Cultist Mob, followed by a Dark Commune and some Raptors. Yeah, and that's it. Now you can see right away that this is his lowest scoring game. Lowest scoring game because something that we talk about here, like I was just saying how Zod can kind of create that distance. Well, it sure would suck for you as an orc player if they had something that could really threaten Zod, which is the Accursed Cultist unit. The Accursed Cultist unit can get enough volume attacks, and they can kind of withstand Zod themselves too, where they can run down Zod with their advance and charge once per game and kind of beat you up. They have the Dark Commune with them. Therefore, and they have the Nurglings to kind of have as their infiltration, creating that space for you. So yeah, this is a more complicated matchup than has been going. And as we talk about tank busters, typically when you're going into stuff that doesn't have invulns, it's fantastic for the shock attack gun. So Bellicor, though, making it so, one, you're gonna have a much harder time getting into the targets you want to get to, but two, now you're going in from 4 to 4s, right? You're going from I'm hitting on 4s to wounding on 4s, and then they're saving on 4s. That can very much go either way. And it usually takes multiple units of tank buses to reliably take down one of these greater demons. So this game does take a little bit more of patience, timing, and understanding when you're going to actually make your commitments here. You're not going to simply say, I'm going to stealth the whole army, right? Because he has flamers anyway. He has flamers on the units that are shooting for him, and then he has a bunch of fast punching out units and his own defensive buff himself. So this might be a game where you're giving yourself +1 strength for weird demon toughnesses, or that you're giving yourself reroll charges when it's that really go time. +1 to hit if you're just going into just as little smaller kind of demon-esque sort of units. But I absolutely love having a big mega armor with the Matt Captain into ACDC, because that's what they don't like to see in the opposition to them. So 69-point win there, which I think was only, when I checked on it, was only a 2-point win. Right here, as you can see, because that Tom player ended up getting 6th and he got 67, and our boy Mark got to 69. So a 2-point win there. Whoa, for Mark Morrow and his tactical brigade. 2 beast bosses, big mecha and mega armor, triple shock attack guns, a Zodgrod, 2 10-man units of Snaggers, 1 Stormboy, 4 trucks, 10 flash kits, Gretchen, a big unit, a small unit of Gretchen, 2 5-man unit of Ludus, a big unit of Ludus, followed by triple tank Busta. So that awesome combined arms combo. A little bit more DACA heavy than melee, but hey man, beast bosses carrying that. And of course, everybody knows flash kits can also get stuck in, lads. Be a cunning get and check out our new order markers that are in our store. So shout out to you gets being cunning. Help you guys get all the orders set on the table nice and clean for all you gets to get stuck in. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!